Today we're going to look at the new version of the Beezy, a mid-priced, large-sized ultra-compact from Cybex. So let's get started then, going over the model's advantages and disadvantages in terms of child comfort, ease of use, performance, and mechanics, before ending with a discussion of which uses and lifestyles it may suit, as well as whether we feel it's worth its price. And beginning with some stats, the Beezy clocks in at 8.4 kilos and folds down to 26 by 44 by 58 centimeters. It can take 22 kilos in the seat and 5 in the underslung shopping basket. When it comes to child comfort, the Beezy seat is adjustable between a newborn acceptable near-flat recline, in Europe and most of the world at least, and an upright position that's unfortunately a bit too sloped in my opinion, and where I'd note that the recline strap is also really tough to pull, especially when it comes to that last bit for getting the seat as upright as possible. Size-wise, the Beezy seat has a width of 32 centimeters, a length for the sitting surface of 79, measured by adding up the lengths of the backboard, baseboard, and leg rest, and a total longer length of 110 when taking into account space beneath the canopy and the distance to the front frame mounted footrest. These aren't horrible dimensions given the Beezy's size and price class, though the length of the backboard, 45 centimeters, is a limiting factor, affecting for how long a child will be able to comfortably use the reclined position, while the footrest is also positioned a little too far back beneath the baseboard, which may make leg positioning a little uncomfortable for older toddlers. As far as other aspects of the seat go, the textiles feel decently durable and sufficiently padded, and the harness has no rethread shoulder straps and a one-pull tightening mechanism. But beyond this, there are a few details absent on the Beezy that are otherwise pretty ubiquitous across the rest of the market, in no means of extending the canopy, which may be a bit short for younger toddlers, and no peekaboo window or mesh panels for providing added ventilation. For the newborn period, in addition to that flat recline, depending on where in the world you live, the Beezy has car seat adapters available that are compatible with a variety of brands. Moving on to parent comfort, the Beezy's handle stands at a fixed height of 107 centimeters, while the shopping basket is easy to access, with the seat upright at least, in the way it extends off the rear frame. When it comes to folding, the process is simple and can be done with one hand, though, to me, it takes a little conscious effort to pull the handle backwards when following the chassis down, so that it ends in a standing fold, and I'd also note that the back seat textiles touch the ground in this position. When folded, the Beezy is comfortable to carry by the bumper bar, and though the folded dimensions are a little too large for the IATA's cabin luggage guidelines, they are within the gate checking limits of a lot of airlines. As far as the feel of using the Beezy goes, the model feels pretty sturdy right out of the box, and while I do suspect a bit of loosening over time with a few of the crossbars, overall, the Beezy's chassis is more rigid and substantial than with many similarly sized models that Cybex has put out in the past. The Beezy has noticeable suspension both in the front and back, and wheel size is pretty large, 8.3 inches in the back and 6.7 in the front. And while I wouldn't do too much off-roading with the model for fear of loosening, it can handle stuff like cobblestones, gravel, and lighter off-roading without feeling too jittery when you need it to. Alright, let's move on to the mechanics of the model then, starting off with the folding system and the overall structure of the chassis, where the Beezy folds down via a short pair of wires running from the activation buttons in the center of the handle to these locking points on the handle arms, that when unlocked, allow the rest of the chassis to fold at a variety of hinged points, including an internal skeleton running from the support struts through the undercarriage that pulls the stroller together. This is a common setup these days, and one that Cybex has long used on several of their strollers, and while with past models, such as early versions of the Easy S, there were problems with the locking points breaking, Cybex has reinforced these mechanisms, and with a bit of occasional lubrication, I don't anticipate the Beezy's folding system to develop too many problems, until the chassis has loosened substantially side to side at least. With regards to loosening, the Beezy does have a lot of cross support from the front and rear frames, that internal skeleton, and the seat frame, but overdoing rougher ground daily is likely to cause loosening in a few places in my opinion, most notably this upper rear crossbar, and over time, loosening here will likely weaken some of the riveting with that internal skeleton, which may then lead to the model feeling a lot more loose and rickety than it does right out of the box. Moving down to the rear frame of the model, there's again decent suspension and relatively large wheels for a smaller model like this. The brake system is rotation-based and is of a type that Cybex has used and improved for a while now, and tends not to have problems. Though that being said, when they do occur, I'd note that the brake bar is quite hard to disassemble should you want to attempt repairs. The rear wheels are decently constructed with regards to the rims and bearings and sit tightly within their housings, while the tires are made of a rubberized foam and will hold up okay, though they're on the soft side and might get a bit ugly a few years down the road if you tend to stroll places with a lot of fine-grained gravel. Looking lastly at the front end, there's suspension built into the forks, and the model has a simple swivel lock design, unlikely to develop many problems. The wheels are pretty tight within the forks, but the axles do sit a little loose in their housings, making for some potential for wobbling problems down the road. So, would I recommend getting the Beezy then? Generally no, despite not being too weak versus other similarly sized models within its price class. The comfort negatives with its seat in particular make it not really worth the $400 to $450 price tag in my opinion. That being said, if you're buying on a budget and can get it for lower than this, or live somewhere in the world with limited brand availability, then there are some uses for which it might not be the worst choice. For daily urban use in a city where you need a little added terrain versatility, as a keep-in-the-trunk stroller for use with a car-based lifestyle, or if you're traveling to a rougher holiday destination. In any case, we hope you found this video interesting, and if you did, we ask that you subscribe, as it helps us to continue making videos in the future. In addition, if you're currently shopping for a stroller, we have a buyer's guide on our Patreon page, which lists a wide range of models that we recommend, with a lot of technical and lifestyle-related information. You can find it by following the link in the description. Thank you.